Hi, I'm Persky and welcome back to my new 2-minute anniversary any percent no bug jump video guide. In this part we're going to focus on Greece, the second country in the game, so let's get right into it. Once you're done with Peru, this is the first room that you get to and the skips start right here. But first, we need to get up on top of this pillar here. Unfortunately, this room has some very annoying lions. Back in the day, this is where a lot of runs used to die, because the odds of making it up there like this are not great. Now, I did say back in the day for a reason, because since then, we found out that if you just look to the left while you walk into the room, it takes the lions considerably longer to attack you. It takes them long enough that this is basically 100% consistent if you do it right. Once you're up there, there's an airwalk from this pillar and then we move on to the right side of the room. Next, you need to gain some height from that pillar until Lara's feet are somewhere in this range here. We do this so that we can get underneath the platform over there. The wall right underneath it has no collision. So if you have the right height, you can just roll through it and get out of bounds. I did that backwards as a movement optimization, but I recommend doing it forwards or sideways first, so that you can actually see where you're going. So now you can just easily move around the entire room out of bounds. You can see the loading area end here, so we have to move back inside to load the next one. Coming up next is Folly Skip, one of the big skips. But first, I need to explain two more of this game's broken mechanics. If, while pulling yourself up a ledge, you hold space instead of just tapping it, you get this handstand animation. This handstand animation has a strange property, specifically that it seems that Lara has no collision while you do it. So, if you handstand yourself up a ledge, if say a wall is right to the left of you, and you continue to hold left while you pull yourself up, you actually physically get pushed into the wall. You can see that the game has to push Lara out of the wall after the animation is finished. There are multiple places in the game where you can actually handstand yourself out of bounds. The other broken mechanic that I need to explain is easier to do, but it will require a more complicated explanation. The game appears to have two different properties to check over the status of Lara's guns. The first, let's call it the aim flag, is triggered whenever you're physically aiming, as in you're holding down the right mouse button. It is this flag that seems to determine what kind of jumps and rolls you're getting. You know, like aim jumps and aim rolls. By the way, if you let go of aim during an aim jump or aim roll, the flag stays active until the animation has finished. The second property is a bit weirder, let's call it the gun flag. This one physically determines whether Lara has guns in her hands right now. You might think that that's the same thing, but it really isn't. For example, while you're switching weapons, Lara temporarily puts her guns away. It is this state where the aim flag is true and the gun flag is false that we care about. Now what does this state do? Well, whether you can grapple is tied to the gun flag, not the aim flag. So just by switching weapons you can grapple while aiming, which is not meant to be possible. Weird stuff starts happening if you do this while you side roll. The side roll just gets interrupted and Lara is forced into a grapple while standing animation. This effect becomes even weirder if you do it while you're aim jumping. The jump gets interrupted by the grapple while standing animation, except this time you're walking in the air. I call this bug walking. I don't know why you clip into the ground like this. I think Lara's hitbox just gets temporarily messed up. The interesting part is that doing this also resets your fall damage. So just by scrolling your mouse wheel and then quickly grappling during an aim jump, you can cancel any fall damage with it if you do it close to the ground. Note that we didn't get the grappling while standing animation here. That only happens while you're not falling. Another way to achieve this effect is to reload your weapons, then let go of aim and then jump. Even though you're not holding the aim button anymore, the aim flag doesn't deactivate until the aim jump has finished. And the end of the reload animation just puts Lara's guns away if you're not holding the aim button anymore, which leads to this weird effect with Lara having her arms outstretched like this. Another way to achieve the exact same effect is to just tap aim and then jump in kind of a very weird specific timing. If you do this just right, this leads Lara to start putting her guns away right as she jumps, leading to the exact same result. Even though these methods are harder, you can use both of them to do fall damage cancels as well. In fact, you need to if you don't have a weapon to switch to yet. You need to be careful though. If you do your aim jump very close to a ledge that you can grab, well, you get a weird bug. The game just warps you back up to it. This happens with all three methods too. All of this grapple while aiming stuff is also the basis for another trick. The one trick that isn't allowed in this category. It's not relevant for the guide, but while I'm already here, I wanted to explain it anyway. If you're not interested, you can skip ahead to around 8 minutes 30 into the video. That bug walking from earlier doesn't just look funny, it has a very useful property. You can jump while it's happening. This double jump has limitations. You can't do anything fancy with it like a swan dive or something, but you can grab onto ledges, allowing you to cover some pretty huge distances. You can already tell that this requires quite a lot of inputs, especially if you don't have a weapon to switch to yet, because then you need to use one of the other methods. Well, it only gets worse from here. I just said that this double jump has limitations as to what you can do in it. Well, there's a workaround for that. You can interrupt your grapple animation by grappling again. This doesn't seem like much, but after the second grapple you get a small time window where you can do any jump that you want. Like for example a swan dive. Or a somersault. Or even another aim jump. And after that, you can repeat the trick, switch your weapons and grapple to do a triple jump. Now, if you just change your control scheme a little to make all of these buttons easier to access, you can start doing things like this. This is called an infinite bug jump. You by the way need to turn VSync off in order for these to work at all. Neither the infinite bug jump nor the singular bug jump, which is what I've been calling double jump, are allowed in this category. It is called no bug jump after all. I think that's enough explanation for now. Let's get back to the run. Folly Skip involves both a handstand out of bounds and a fall damage cancel. First, we need to get to the area on the left of the Poseidon gate. Now this part might seem weird. We open up the inventory, move over to the shotgun and press enter. This is gonna make more sense in a bit. Then we run down this ledge and position ourselves in a very specific place so that that line is between Lara's hands. Also make sure that Lara's right foot is below the left one like this, by making sure you press left one more time if that isn't the case. Then you hold space in order to start a handstand while still holding left. Currently, Lara is out of bounds. She doesn't get pushed back inside until the animation is finished. The game gives control back to you a few frames before that happens, meaning we have a small time window where we can just jump out of bounds. Pretty much at the moment that Lara's right foot hits the ground, you need to hold aim and then jump very quickly. The next thing we need to do is a fall damage cancel. Unfortunately, even though we have the shotgun at this point, we never collected any ammo for it, so we can't just switch to it by scrolling the mouse wheel. This is why we used the inventory a second ago to manually switch to the shotgun. We can't use it, but at least we can switch back. We can't use one of the other two methods to do a fall damage cancel here, because both of them require you to have at least some amount of runway. After the jump, make sure that you turn your camera around so that it faces the opposite way. And after about 1 second in total, scroll your mouse wheel and press Q to perform a fall damage cancel. Then just hold forward and aim for this area here. If you've made it this far, you're almost through. The level exit is right there, but there is one more obstacle. All of this is an out of bounds area that you're never intended to be in, so the collision here is a little strange. There is an area of invisible floor here, that's what we're currently standing on, and there's another identical one over there. Unfortunately, they are also separated by an invisible wall, so you can't just jump over. This is the path we need to take, which is of course a problem because the floors and the wall are invisible. There is a safe setup for this though. You just hold forward until you arrive at the invisible wall, and then you carefully tap right to move along it. After a second or so, Lara will start weirdly stumbling like this. That means that you're right here, where the invisible wall ends, because Lara is slightly clipping through the ground in between these two invisible floors. Once you've made it there, you just have to look towards the exit and hold forward. And then you just swan dive. I should mention that you can also do this by just instinctively running or jumping around it and hoping that it works, but I can really not recommend doing this even though it is faster. One thing that I should mention here is a movement bug that can happen in every category of this game. Sometimes you get in a state where after you swan dive, Lara just stops for a moment like this. I'm simulating it here by letting go of W periodically, but this is what it looks like. I have to simulate it because no one actually knows what causes this to happen. There is thankfully an easy fix. You just spam roll until you do this double roll animation here, that fixes it. I'm mentioning it here because it happens quite often after you do the Folly Skip, but it can happen anywhere. It's mostly just important that you recognize if it is happening and fix it, because it does lose your time. So once Folly Skip is over, we just move through this corridor here normally. Then we get an airwalk from this rock, turn to the left and start backhand springing. Next we drop into this water basin and dive down, but you need to be careful. If you do this too close to the edges, the water will just push you back up. On the way down you need to be careful again by making sure you keep your distance from this bit of ceiling here. You can sometimes get stuck inside of it somehow. Once you've gotten back up and turned around, there's a kind of difficult airwalk here. After that, we angle our camera slightly to the left and back roll a few times. This cage gains us a bit of height, enough to make it over this wall. You need to be careful here as well. If your airwalk is still active and your backhand springing up this corridor, it is possible to go underneath the loading trigger and unload the room. There are multiple ways to avoid this. You can just walk here instead of rolling, you can side roll instead, or you can end your airwalk by putting your guns away, stopping or jumping. In the same way that you can roll underneath the loading trigger and accidentally unload the room, you can also do this intentionally with a trigger that starts the cutscene and skip it entirely. I was never able to get the hang of it, but here's footage of better speedrunner dark spots doing it.
På Coliseum Skip.
When jumping up here, make sure to angle your camera extra far to the right so that you can get a faster climbing animation.
Centaur, pick up the pace.
As you can see, we actually pick up ammo for the shotgun here, which will make fall damage cancels in the future much easier. Here's an optimization that I do. I jump right at that ledge in front of me to get an airwalk from it. After that, I turn my camera around, walk forward a little bit and then start backhand springing. You can alternatively also get an airwalk from the ledge next to you. This is safer because with my setup you can get pushed down. But regardless, make sure that you switch weapons after you get the airwalk so that Lara loads the shotgun. Also make sure that you pick up this 50 caliber ammo here, we will need it later. Here you can see more instances of FPS lighting. Next we need to get an airwalk from that rock. I always use this point in the ground for reference. When I get there I do a short jump. The ceiling here has no collision, so we can just go through. Now this part is tricky. We just crossed the loading trigger for the stairwell, but we're trying to get down there using a fall damage cancel. I usually roll to the side here once, walk forwards a bit and then jump. You need to do your fall damage cancel really late for this to work. We then Alt F4 to this level transition. We then immediately turn to the right and start going up to this platform. Next comes what is probably one of the harder airwalks in the run to get. That is because how far away Lara is from the ledge when you pull yourself up is kind of random on this one. Then we need to go back into the last room. Make sure you roll underneath this doorway here. If you try to walk through it will push you down too far. In classic Tomb Raider Anniversary fashion, the top of the walls in this room aren't solid. When you get to this part, you need to let go of aim and then very quickly do a swan dive. The next part of the run gets tricky, because ideally we're gonna try to get through 2 loading triggers without clipping back in bounds. This right here is a loading trigger for the next area. What you have to do here is swim directly towards the center of that pillar, and once you touch it, immediately turn right. This loads the next area, but we're still out of bounds, so we can just swim over that corridor and speed this section up. The next loading trigger is here, and we're basically gonna do the exact same thing again, except this time it's much harder. Try to put this line directly to the right of Lara's head, and just before you load the next area, quickly swim to the right. You will notice when the next area has loaded because the music stops. Then we surface, still out of bounds, to the right of this room. That trick can be pretty unreliable, and I am gonna show you a few backup strats that you can do. If you are too far to the right, you will miss the loading trigger. If that happens, you will need to turn around and try again. Make sure that you stop first and then turn around like this. If you just hold back to turn around, Lara will do a curve and she might fall out of bounds. If you swim too far to the left, you will get pushed inside. This isn't too bad because there is a way to clip back out. Just swim directly into this corner at a 45-degree angle without mashing E. Once Lara grabs the ledge, let go of any movement keys. I need to mention that this trick only works in high frame rates. This is yet another reason why we play with VSync off. At this corner, again make sure that you stop before you turn. If you don't, Lara will again swim in a curve and fall out of bounds. Once you get past that pillar, Lara will just be pushed up to the surface. And when you get here, you have to do yet another pretty difficult airwalk. The difficulty here is how high the ledge is that you're jumping on. You only get a very small window to draw your weapons. Additionally, there's no space above the box, so if you do any mistakes, you will end up crouched on top of it. There is a decent setup for it though. You run directly towards the box. Once you get past this line, you hold space. As soon as Lara's in the air, you let go of space and start holding shift instead. And when you're just about to reach the box, you hold down the right mouse button. And lastly, as soon as the airwalk is initiated, you hold back and then let go of forwards. Holding shift prevents Lara from being crouched on top of the box. This makes the timing window larger for aiming. When you're past that, it's just a matter of going around this whole water puzzle room here. Then let go of aim and quickly do a swan dive here to finally get back in bounds. You might notice that Lara's air meter here is nearly empty, even though we've just entered the water. This happened because Lara didn't properly surface before, she just kind of got pushed out of the water. This confused the game over whether Lara's in the water or not. The air meter is still there, but it's frozen. You don't really need to worry much about your health in this category. If it's really low, you may use one of the small medpacks that you have. You won't need them outside of Greece anymore. Next we get a new airwalk from this ledge. Then we turn around, we roll up that rock once, and then the rock next to it, around 3 or 4 times. The important part is that we need to be at least as high as this corner here, which is the highest part of the rock. There's one particular polygon in the roof of this room that isn't solid. We need the height in order to clip through. So once we're there, we need to start side rolling towards the opposite side of the room. Align Lara as well as possible with this line on the floor and then side roll through the room diagonally 4 times. This trick can be pretty difficult. If your angle is just a little bit too wrong, you won't be able to make it. Next, just move back and bounce into the main cavern. There's yet another bit of missing collision to the right of the temple. If side rolling through the wall doesn't work, you might want to try back rolling. If that doesn't work either, you're probably too high or too low to clip through the wall. If that happens, there is another way to get out of bounds in here. Once all of that is done, jump back and bounce on the other side of the door. Make sure you touch the door in order to load the next area. Then just move around the corner and enter the cutscene. This quicktime event is as simple as pressing down and then right. Unfortunately, coming up next is what is in my experience the worst part of the run and the biggest run killer of them all, the Centaur fight. Everything up to this point was pretty much either based on setups or in skill, but the Centaur fight is mostly luck. First, I'm gonna show you basically what you need to do in order to finish the battle as fast as possible, and then I'm gonna show you every way that I can think of that bad luck can just mess the battle up for you. The first thing that you need to do is to long jump or somersault forwards. It takes a few seconds after the cutscene before the game lets you switch weapons. When the jump is about to end, scroll down the mouse wheel once or press next weapon in order to switch to the shotgun. As soon as that's done, immediately start shooting at the Centaur to the left. Once shot twice, his adrenaline meter will fill up and he will attempt to turn you to stone. This, however, only happens if you're targeting him by the end of the animation. So, just by letting go of aim for a moment and then aiming again, you can prevent this from happening. Next, go around the Centaur to put yourself between him and the wall. This will make it less likely that he tries to charge you. He might still try. In this particular instance, for example, he did. It's not a big deal if he gets you, but it does lose you time. Regardless, as soon as the Centaur finishes his turning you to stone animation, start shooting him with the shotgun again. This time, once the adrenaline meter fills up, one of the Centaurs will attempt to charge you. It is random, but most likely it will be the one that you weren't shooting at, and ideally it should be that one. So switch to your pistols, headshot him, and then use a grapple to steal his shield. The reason why you want the Centaur you weren't shooting at to charge you is because his shield will always land over there, the other shield would land over here. The shield being where it is now makes the next phase easier. Also, while the cutscene is going on, switch to your 50 caliber pistols. Next, get to the shield and then start shooting at the Centaur who's still carrying the other one. Getting Lara to shoot at the correct Centaur can be very annoying. Once that's done, pick up the shield and aim it at the Centaur. While turned to stone, the Centaur is vulnerable, but you only have barely enough time to one-cycle him, and I mean you need to shoot him on basically every possible frame. So while the cutscene is happening, you need to already hold aim and start spamming shoot. This also means if you don't have enough ammo loaded, specifically 16 bullets or more, you won't be able to make it, so make sure you reload if you don't have enough. It's also important that you start moving as soon as you can. If you just stay there, the other Centaur might charge you. Speaking of the second Centaur, try to avoid him in general. It's possible for him to move in between you and the Centaur and catch a bullet. The best way to avoid that is just to get very close to the Centaur you're shooting, but if you get too close, like right underneath him, then for some reason your bullets will just go through. One more thing, even though you need to start moving as soon as the cutscene ends, you cannot start moving during the cutscene. For some reason, if you hold any movement key as the cutscene ends, you just kind of get stuck in place. You can break out of this by side jumping or side rolling, but it is very annoying. If any of this happens and you fail the trick, you basically have to aggro them again, steal the other Centaur's shield, then aggro them again and then finish the first Centaur off. All of this with the regular pistols too, because you don't have enough ammo. So failing basically makes the battle 2 very slow cycles longer. If everything worked out though, you can basically relax at this point. You just go back to the shield, aggro the remaining Centaur and then destroying with your remaining 50 caliber and shotgun ammo. After stealing the shield, you can alternatively also use the shotgun instead of the 50 caliber pistols. This is harder to do, but it is faster. And more importantly, it means that you will have enough 50 caliber ammo left to kill the second Centaur without having to switch weapons, which saves even more time. By the way, if you want to, and a lot of runners do this, you can turn manual aim on, which will make aiming in this battle a lot easier. You will just have to turn it on before the battle and turn it back off after it, which loses you some time. Now that we've gone through everything that you can do to make the Centaur fight faster, now I will go through everything that the game can do to just ruin your day completely. Number 1. The left Centaur bugs. Sometimes, as soon as the battle starts, the left Centaur will not, as he should, spawn next to the temple and run forwards. Instead, he will fall from the sky and run towards the temple. He will then just kind of writhe there, and it is impossible to aggro him until he's done. The backup strat here would be to instead go for the other Centaur. Number 2. The right Centaur bugs. This is the exact same bug as the last one, it's just happening to the other Centaur. This doesn't really affect you since you don't have to interact with this one until later. Unless... Number 3. Both Centaurs Bug. I believe this trick is kind of self-explanatory by now. There really is nothing you can do against this. You just have to wait until the left Centaur is finished and then start shooting him. Number 4. Lara targets the wrong Centaur. Sometimes, actually quite often, after aggroing the left Centaur for the first time, Lara will just refuse to aim at the same Centaur again. If that happens, you just have to go for the other Centaur instead. Number 5. The Centaurs ignore the shotgun. This is one of the most aggravating bugs in the fight. Sometimes the Centaur's adrenaline meter will just not go up when you shoot them, or it will only go up a tiny bit. This can get so bad that you sometimes will not have enough ammo left to shoot the final Centaur in one cycle. Number 6. One of the Centaurs Freezes. This bug is really more of an honorable mention, because it actually helps you more than it harms you. Sometimes the Centaur will just freeze in place after an animation. I wish I knew what causes this, because you can still aggro them. Number 7. You get the wrong shield. If the Centaur you were actually shooting charges you, you will have to work with the other shield. This shield is a lot less favorable because both Centaurs basically run around it in a perfect circle, making it very difficult to single one out and shoot at him. Number 8. Lara targets the wrong Centaur. Again. Sometimes while you're trying to aggro the Centaur who still has a shield, Lara will just randomly change aim for no reason. You can see it happen here on the very last shot. Number 9. Lara grapples the wrong shield. Sometimes, when you're trying to steal the shield, Lara will just instead grapple the wrong shield of the Centaur that isn't stunned. Number 10. Floating shield. Sometimes after the cutscene where one of the shields hits the ground, it just turns around and starts floating in the air like this. It is impossible to grab and you can't fix this. There's also a variation of this bug where the shield is just standing on its side, but I couldn't find any footage of it. And last but not least, number 11. What even? Sometimes, extremely rarely when the battle starts, basically everything just breaks completely. I have one screenshot of this happening to me. Like, what am I even looking at right now? Like, one Centaur's on the roof, the other one's T-posing? I'm probably forgetting some bugs here, but you get the point. This battle is broken. So once we're finally done, there's 2 cutscenes to skip and a level transition to Alt F4 through. So I started making this particular video 3 months ago. Hi, it's me, by the way. Hi, this is me. But it did in total only take me like a week to complete, because I did have a pretty long period where I just did not feel like working on it at all. I saw comments under the first one that people wanted to see the next part in the series, so I didn't want to let them down, so here it is finally. I'm definitely gonna do Egypt. Like, you're only there for like 3 minutes in the run, so it's probably not gonna be a very long video. Lost Island is probably also gonna be shorter than this video and Peru was. I want to give a special shout out again to the Tomb Raider Discord, where I learned most of this stuff. And if you have any particular questions or you find something else that I didn't mention, you should go there and ask. They can help you. And that's pretty much it from me. Thanks for watching. See you in the next part then.